Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of r/Entitled People. In today's episode, won a lawsuit against a guy who tried to force me out of business because I broke his local monopoly. Customer said to my GF, "Go back to China, you chink bitch. She's not Chinese." Entitled mom demands that I babysit her dog. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. Won a lawsuit against a guy who tried to force me out of business because I broke his local monopoly. I am 26 years old, and I decided to open my own business this year. Moving forward in this post, I should point out that I am from a small town, 1,000 people, in the rural Midwest. Because of this, everyone has some sort of connection with someone. We went to one of the liquor stores in the closest city 30-ish minutes away, small city 8,000 people. When we were grabbing some alcohol for a party, I was looking at the prices and saw how insane the prices were. For a 6-pack of a local beer, we were charged $15. I was thinking about this and figured that I could probably make bank opening a liquor store. Back in February, I was furious about my shitty job and thinking out loud how cool it would be to own my own business to a friend. My friend's mom happened to be the president of the local bank. He told me, "Hey, with the pandemic, the bank has been struggling to find customers to give out loans. Right now, the bank is giving loans for cheap." A couple of weeks later, I went in and met with my friend's mom and pitched my idea with the research I had done on alcohol prices, potential demand, and estimated income. I got the loan at a fantastic interest rate. I bought a building, which happened to be the former bank, and hired my dad to help me renovate the building. My dad is a general contractor, and he gave me an excellent quote on materials and labor. After working everything out with the distributors, getting the proper licenses, and getting my paperwork I needed for the government, I was ready to open my liquor store in May. I had started taking out ads in the local newspaper advertising my store and my prices. When I was in talks with my distributors, I learned, even with inflation and everything else, the liquor stores in the city had like an 80% markup. I talked to a local business owner, and he suggested that I have around a 35% to 40% markup. Because of this, I was significantly cheaper than the closest liquor store and had a much wider selection than the gas stations and small local stores nearby. My hometown is near a national forest, as such we have a ton of people who come up for weekends for recreational activities year-round. My first week, the week before Memorial Weekend, after opening I had made a $4,000 profit. It was great being my own boss. If someone was rude to me or my girlfriend, "Oh, I'm sorry, you can do your business elsewhere." If someone tells my GF, "Go back to China, you chink," they can pay me 15% more at the register. Did the gang and I run out of alcohol? Time to grab my keys, not car keys, the store keys. My apartment is like 2 blocks away, and go to the store. That's not to say that it wasn't difficult running my own business, especially that my only employee was my GF, and we were both working 6 or 7 10 to 12-hour days a week. I was both manager, accountant, and cashier, but it's so much nicer knowing I can tell someone to pound sand for being a prick. Couple of weeks after Memorial Day, some old guy walks into my store a couple of minutes after I opened. He seemed friendly enough, but eventually he offered to buy my store. I'm not going to say the amount, but it wouldn't have even covered my principal on the loan. I rejected the proposal outright and refused to negotiate the sum higher. He walked out of my store saying, "Welp, you'll be sorry you rejected that offer." The next month, a guy walked into my store and asked if I was the owner. After saying yes, I was informed that my business was being sued by this random guy I never heard of for libel. After he left, I was freaking out and I decided that I was going to close early. When I got home, I googled the guy and soon saw a picture of the guy that tried to buy my store. It turns out that that is the guy who owns both of the liquor stores in the nearby city. It also just so happens that he is on city council. With a little bit of further digging, I learned that this city has an ordinance that reads, any business institution that does not fulfill the definition of a restaurant, tavern, or liquor dispensary will be excluded from obtaining a license for the sale of alcohol. Later I discovered that the same guy happens to be the head of the board which approves liquor licenses. I love small-town corruption. Either way, I had a major issue. My maternal uncle happens to be a lawyer in a neighboring state. I decided to call him and try to get some legal advice. I talked to him and read the documents that I had been handed/served over the phone, and the research I had done. After receiving all of the information I had read off, I was expecting to get some sort of advice, but instead heard, hang on, I got to make a call. And he hung up. I'm freaking out. I was actually about to post my first post to r/legal advice. I'll be honest, I just wanted someone to tell me it was going to be okay, and I didn't need to crawl to this guy on my hands and knees. As I was writing the title, my uncle called back. Hey OP, I just got off the phone with my partner. He agreed that we can take your case pro bono. If you would like to accept, we can discuss at my office tomorrow at 1 o'clock. This is how I learned that my uncle is on the bar in 3 states. So, we meet, and we discussed the case. It turns out that the guy filed the libel suit against my business based on the ads I took out in the local newspapers. He claimed that my ads were targeted to damage his and his business's reputation. There were a few other things that I had no idea what was being referenced, but Uncle assured me that we would win this case no problem. 3 weeks later the case is dismissed, but after my uncle says people like that piece of work will likely try to file another suit against you. If that happens, call me and promise I will help. The next day I get served again, but this time I am the defendant. Not my store, me. I swear to God, I look at the documentation and the only thing that changed was instead of my business's name, mine is listed as the defendant. Same thing happens, 4 weeks later the case is dismissed. Over the next 3 months I was sued just as many times. Before the 5th case's hearing we had a settlement meeting. My uncle, the judge, the guy suing me, his lawyer, a bailiff, and I were sitting in this room. Judge says, you two have been in court 4 times already, is there any way we could come to an agreement that'll stop this cycle of faulty litigation? The guy's lawyer says they have an offer and hand it to my uncle, who then hands it to me. It essentially read that he'll stop all litigation if I sell my business for about 30% of remaining loan principal. I outright rejected the offer and made a counteroffer. I said, if you drop this case, I won't sue your ass for harassment. He busts out laughing, sue me? With what money? The legal fees alone ought to have drained you. You should be happy I chose to extend this offer and not sue you into bankruptcy and buy that shithole from the bank when the foreclose on your dumb. The judge, the bailiff, and the guy's own lawyer were all looking at him aghast for saying the silent part out loud about the real reason I was getting sued. My uncle straight out said to him, "Oh, I am sorry, apparently you were never told. I have taken all of my nephew's cases pro bono. The only money he has spent on your litigations is gas. And bluntly, sir, I think your outburst has just insured a suit against you." After that we just left, and I was then informed a few days later the litigation was dropped. Right now, my uncle and I are talking about the future suit against the guy. I want to sue the guy for a very high amount to try and get press attention on this guy and his sketchy actions. Although my uncle warned me that we'll need to be careful because if we set the damages too high it'll look like we're just being vindictive. This suit won't be pro bono, but after getting sued 5 times for free essentially, I am not going to complain. Looking back on this, I am so thankful that my friends and family supported the entire way, especially my uncle. Without my uncle, I would have absolutely lost my business. That's some story and just goes to show the corruption that can happen. I'm glad you have your uncle. I'd love to hear about the follow-ups on this one if you get time to post. Yeah, depending how the case moves forward, I'll like to post an edit, but I can't promise anything for a few weeks/months. Proper justice is slow, unfortunately. I hope you squeeze that melon head dry. Great story. Sorry for all of the trouble you have faced and the racism against your GF. It is truly inspiring that you saw a market and took the initiative start and run your business ethically. My whole life I've wanted to start a business but could never come up with a good enough plan or guts to follow through. Maybe being lucky enough to have a good enough career, usually working good people, never gave me the proper motivation. I certainly hope you prevail and succeed. I hope there is a way to, legally, hurt that guy financially without being too dirty. Not that you have extra time or anything, but look into getting a seat in city council if there is an advantage to doing so. My wife Santh spent so much time dealing with the city council for a small real estate project she figured she might as well just run for council and got it. Of course, be careful not to show your hand and make the guy feel so threatened that he comes at you harder. It sounds like you're relatively young and have a future to build with your business, and I'm sure someday a family. Thanks for sharing. Your uncle and partner are our stand-up guys. There's a term, vexatious litigant. This guy met that definition, and your uncle should ask that he be declared one in your suit. Then he has to post a bond to cover his opponent's legal fees if he files any more suits, if I read it right. Make him pay your uncle if he wants to keep playing. Does your state have anti-slap laws on the books? This seems like a classic case. That was pretty dumb of him to say what he said in front of the judge. That pretty much sealed his fate. Small-town politics at its finest. I opened up a restaurant years ago and received trouble every step of the way. Apparently, a city councilman did not want me to open up my restaurant because a quality restaurant would damage his uncle's restaurant and all of his friends' restaurants. 3 days before my opening day, the city inspector comes in and tells me one of my hood vents is not up to code and I need to install another one to get somebody in there same day and to be able to open on time, another $18,000 last minute. They fought me every step of the way after I was open, constantly trying to find something wrong simply because I was not one of the good old boys. Time to invest in some good cameras and a security system. Customer said to my GF, "Go back to China, you chink bitch." She's not Chinese. I opened a liquor store in my hometown this year, which my GF and I are running together. Last night I posted to this subreddit about something else that happened. In that post I referenced this story and saw a couple of people asking about how I was able to legally charge this lady 15% extra, and my girlfriend said I should tell the story. 4th of July weekend, and we were prepped for the busy weekend. Although around 8 o'clock things had started to slow down. In the store we have a TV which I use to run ads for different events, benefits, few things for my store, and a couple other businesses in town. When we have no customers in the store, my GF, my employees are allowed to do the same, and I connect the TV to our phones, and we'll stream Hulu or YouTube videos. So, we're standing there watching Family Guy when the door opens. I walk up to the register, while my girlfriend is turning the TV back to the ads we have running. This lady, who easily looks like she's in her late 40s, maybe early 50s, walks in looking absolutely furious. Before I can say hi, she yells, "Does your manager know what you're doing?" My GF and I share a glance. Because of our age, many people assume we just work there and aren't the owner and GM. I look back and nod my head. Yeah, I'm pretty certain that manager and owner have intimate knowledge of what we're doing. My GF chuckles behind me. She huffs, "I don't care who you're sleeping with. I need this beer. Do you have it?" My GF jumps up. "Yeah, I just stocked it, I'll." The lady snaps her attention directly to her. "What are you doing here?" My GF is very confused by that comment. "I'm working." The lady says, "No, that's not what I meant, and you know that. My father fought in Korea. So why is someone like you here? This is an American company with American jobs. You shouldn't be here." My GF and I are absolutely slack-jawed at this woman for her blatant racism. Before we can say anything, she continues. "Your kind murdered Americans. So maybe you should work for the Chinese or go back to China, you chink." Before this woman or my GF can say anything, I yell, "Get out of my store." The woman snaps at me, rounding the counter. She screeches back at me, "Who do you think you are?" "I'm the owner." I grab her arm and she starts *ching and slapping my hand, but I just start dragging her to the door. "Now get out." I open the door to my vestibule and push her into it. She turns back. She's standing in the vestibule and yells, "I'm calling the police for impersonation and assault." I didn't even dignify it with a response and just walked back in. I hadn't noticed, but my GF had gone back into the office, and I started consoling her. I've dealt with rude people all my life, but that woman crossed a line. Around 10 minutes later, and I see a car pull into the parking lot on the monitor connected to the cameras. I look at it and see one of the trucks that's used by the sheriff's department. I wait a couple minutes and I get up and walk out front and see this woman standing next to my door. She's giving a statement to the deputy who I instantly recognize. I went to high school with this guy, and we played football and baseball together. I walk out the door and am greeted by "That's him. He's impersonating the owner and assaulted me." The deputy looks over at me, very obviously confused. "Him?" The lady rolls her eyes. "Yes. Him." The deputy says, "Miss, he's the owner." She about goes ballistic on him. "No, he's not. Look at him. He's too young." The deputy is very obviously annoyed but manages to explain to her that I am actually the owner. She then says, "But he assaulted me." I explain the situation to him, and he turns to her and says, "Miss, he is the owner and he asked you to leave, then he removed you from his business." The woman is standing there fuming when she finally yells, "Fine, I'll just get my husband's beer." I stand in front of the door and say, "No, you're not." "Excuse me? You called my girlfriend a chink. I'm not letting you back into my store." She huffs and yells, "Fine, I am going somewhere else to get his beer." She leaves, and before the deputy got to his car, I stopped him and convinced him to stay for a while. I knew that the lady was going to be coming back because nobody in my town carries that beer. 20 minutes later, the lady comes back, this time much humbler. "I'm sorry, but no one else in this town sells my husband beer. We're having a barbecue tomorrow and it would mean the world to him if I could get that beer." I sigh and say, "Well, I suppose it'll be alright." She is overcome by this look of gratitude, "But I will be charging you a 15% markup, and you will give my GF an apology tomorrow." She stops. "Why?" I remind her what she said to my GF. "Well, that markup illegal." This is why I asked the deputy to hang around. "Actually, miss, as long as he lets you know about the markup, he perfectly in line with state and county law." She bought her husband 2 6-packs of the beer, and is then escorted outside by the deputy. The next day she came in and handed my GF a handwritten note to her. My GF then calmly explained that she and her family are not Chinese, they're Hmong. Which, if you know anything about Hmong history, you'll understand the irony of the ladies your kind murdered Americans. OP, I would like to say you're hella cool for doing what you're doing. What the hell is wrong with people? I hope your GF is doing alright, smiley face. Your kind murdered Americans is a statement that doesn't narrow anything down. Even Americans killed Americans. Considering who the original Americans were, her definition of Americans killed pretty much all of them. The irony. Hmong is in Hmong, a Vietnamese ethnic, right? If so, then that would be a hell of an irony. Kinda of right, they have a long history. As a group, they were driven out of China, settled in the hills, mountains of Vietnam and Laos. Helped the Americans during the war in Vietnam. Were persecuted by both the Laotian and Vietnamese governments after the Americans withdrew. They have a unique culture and language, separate from Vietnam, China or Laos. I live in Minnesota, have many Hmong co-workers. The Hmong in the US relocated here because they were fighting for the US and it wasn't safe for most of them to remain. As opposed to the Kurds, who were fighting for the US, but were abandoned and left to die by the US in general and by Trump specifically. The Kurds, like many of the Afghans and Iraqis who fought for the US, were left out to dry by both political parties. I wouldn't have sold it to her at all. Or charged her 100% markup. Sorry your GF had to deal with her. By the way, that lady is likely in her late 60s/early 70s if her dad actually fought in Korea. Open hostilities ended in 1953, I think. My dad was just old enough to fight in Korea, though was only stationed in the US, and I'm only 48, yeah my parents had me late. Or had older parents. I'm sure I'm not the only Gen Zer who was a surprise born to World War II vet in the late 60s. Wow, some people. You handled it like a champion. I'm not gonna lie, the only reason I know about the Hmong is from the Clint Eastwood film Gran Torino. Absolutely fantastic movie. Loved the movie. My first car was a Torino, and I had a great work friend who was Hmong in Florida. It doesn't matter if she is Chinese or not. Even if that customer knows her background, it will probably still be rude to you, our girlfriend. Truly, her actual ethnicity isn't the issue. Had she been born in Beijing, Seoul, or Hanoi, it was still presumptuous, inappropriate, and ignorant to racially insult her. Entitled mom demands that I babysit her dog. This happened about a month ago, in early June of 2023. I was at home and got a phone call from my mom asking to babysit her dog by taking time off of work, saying that it was a family emergency. My cousin's house caught fire due to some negligent contractors leaving flammable material-soaked rags near a live outlet in their garage. Don't worry, they have insurance which covered everything. So when my mom calls me, she informs me that she needs someone to babysit the dog. I had recently switched job days at my work and told her I can't just tell them I need time off so soon because that won't look good on my end for me. I gave her multiple options to handle the situation, all of which she turned down. She began throwing a tantrum and tried to guilt-trip me, saying that she never asks us for help, and tried to paint me as the bad guy. We have helped her out many times in the past before, even if it's something small like buying a pack of cigarettes or buying her favorite brand of soda. I am still upset about it despite it being nearly a month later. I love the "I never ask you for anything. Just realize it's not you," and she doesn't care about anything but what she wants. It's kind of funny how the people who say they never ask for anything are usually the ones who never stop asking for favors. You don't need to take time off just to watch her dog. The dog isn't yours, and you have a job. So you don't need to babysit the dog. This shouldn't even be a question. Of course you can't take off work to watch someone's dog, even if it is your mother's. Why did she need anyone to watch the dog? Did she live at the cousin's house? If not, why can't dog stay at the mom's house while mom helps the cousin? She had no other options for others to babysit the dog, and my cousin's house already has 4 other dogs currently living in it. My wife's mom expected her to miss a final exam to pick her up at the airport. People need to plan their crap out. I never put that kind of expectation on my son. Sorry mom, I wouldn't even take off work to watch my own dog. Her dog, her responsibility, and not your problem. I hate it when adults tantrum. Is your mom here because we don't serve toddlers? The best sentence I ever heard at a restaurant. LOL. Isn't that what professional kennels are for? Even pet stores do doggy daycare, PetSmart/Petco. Or hire a service. We get one to come feed our cats when we're away. There are also dog sitting services that stay in home. Let it go. Holding onto the resentment is like drinking poison so another person will die. They have forgotten it, so you should. Congratulations for setting and holding a boundary. I'm a pet sitter, a daycare is like 40 pounds, it's not that hard, lol. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and we will see you in the next video.